Another interesting aeroplane visiting the airshow at Canberra is the English Electric Canberra, the ultimate Canberra. First flight of the original Canberra was on the 13th of May 1949, and over 900 were built in the UK, over 450 were built in the United States and in Australia. The Canberra was originally built with a 6,500 pound thrust Avon as the B2 and was developed through the BI-8, the interdictor version, to the ultimate Canberra, which is the one behind me, which is the PR9. Other Canberra marks from 11 onwards are basically variations and modifications of earlier aircraft such as the B2 and the PR3. But the PR9 was quite unique. Unique in that it had very large Rolls-Royce Avon 203 engines producing 11,250 pounds of thrust. A lot of thrust and a lot of noise too. In addition to the larger engines, the chord of the wing inboard of the engines was extended, and the wings themselves were extended in span to increase the area, such that the increase in thrust and the increase in wing area gave the PR9 an incredibly good high-level performance. Not a fast aeroplane, cruising Mach numbers around 0.7, but an aeroplane which can go very, very high and of course absolutely suitable for photo reconnaissance work. The PR9 first flew around 1959, so the aircraft is now almost 44 years old and still has no replacement in sight. It is in fact the RAF's equivalent of the American U-2 spy plane and has seen operational service in many areas of the world and in many of our recent conflicts. As I said earlier, the Canberra first flew in 1949, so the aerodynamics of the wing are somewhat dated to say the least. The very high altitude performance of all marks of Canberra, and particularly the PR9, were a function of its very large wing, the very relatively thick wing, and the area of the wing on the PR9 was further increased by extending the length of the wing inboard of the engine. In addition to that, the span of the aircraft was increased, and we can see the extended wingtip is about 3 feet longer than the ordinary or the earlier Canberra marks. And this airplane is very comfortably able to get to around 60,000 feet. The limitation in service is the aircrew's oxygen system, which limits them to 50,000 feet. Other than that, you need to be wearing a pressure suit and a pressure helmet. But this aircraft during trials got well up above 70,000 feet. It's a very high altitude airplane. Not, as I said, particularly fast, around Mach 0.7, but for the reconnaissance role generally, speed is not vital. Altitude is. But looking at the Canberra's wing also, we can see the trailing edge flap, which is fairly unique, a bit like a Spitfire in some ways, in that the wing flaps were either up or they were down. All takeoffs were carried out flapless, and when the aircraft was in the approach configuration and lined up on the runway, flaps were selected down and they went all the way. There was no intermediate position. That gave quite a strong trim change too, which had to be managed with care. And also on single engine landings, they produced an awful lot of drag. So flap was never extended to the landing position until you were absolutely sure that the aircraft was going to make the runway safely. And here on the port side of the Canberra PR9, we see one of the old type of film cameras. This is an F95. There are two of these cameras looking sideways. There's one on the port side, one on the starboard side in a similar position, and one in the nose. The more modern fit will include much more sophisticated cameras, particularly in the survey mode, which would be housed in a crate inside the bomb bay of the Canberra PR9, which is much smaller than the bomb bays of, say, the B2 and the BI-8 and the B6s. But it still can carry a comprehensive photographic fit. Quite frankly, there is nothing with which we can replace the PR9. It's a classic aeroplane.